Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
You are now listening to the Backlook Cinema Podcast with Zach and Zoe. Thank you for joining us as we talk about the movies of yesteryear. You can reach us on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter by searching for Backlook Cinema. Check our show notes for more info, and now, let's get it in.
Hi, this is Zach.
And this is Zoe, and welcome to the Backlook Cinema Podcast with Zach and Zoe, where we take a look back at the movies of yesteryear. And this is our 32nd episode. The reason we started this show was to strengthen the bond between my son Zach and me, Zoe. We watched movies that I loved when I was growing up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and we get Zach's impressions on these great movies.
You can get t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, face masks, and other jerseys and other items at our website, backlookcinema.com.
You can also find our merch at back-look-cinema-merch.creator-spring.com. I did it again! And please follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and other socials. You can find details in the show notes. There are direct links to our socials at backlookcinema.com, where you can leave us direct feedbacks, comments, suggestions, etc., or you can email us at fanmail@backlookcinema.com.
And please, if you like our show, then rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast app that you might be using.
All right. So, son, what you been up to?
Same nothing, just playing Smite and Apex.
Smite? Oh, so you're going back to Apex?
Yeah.
Why you say it like that?
Yeah. Nothing else to really play as a shooter.
Man, it must be great to have all this free time to be able to finish games. I'm still on, what
What free time? I only got free time on Saturdays and Fridays.
Right, but still, you can play a lot more games. I'm only playing Outer Worlds, and I'm also playing a little bit of, I shouldn't say a little bit, because I've been on that joint.
Yeah, you've been on it until like 1 or 2 in the morning.
Yeah, I've been on, what's it called? Outriders. I've been on Outriders. I enjoy the game, and you're like, and I'll get stuck a couple of times. Like I was stuck for a while on that level that you saw me on, and then and then I dropped it. I was on World 6, and then I dropped it down to World 5, and I was still getting toasted. And then you was like, drop it down some more. I was like, I don't want to drop down another world. No, I defy it. And then somebody else jumped in my game, and then it was easy after that. It was just with the two of us, it was real easy. I was like, wow, that's crazy. But then when you got other people in the game, they don't want to look, hunt for clues or nothing. They don't have the patience with that.
Of course they don't.
So I'll probably have to go back to those spaces again and look for like lore and clues and whatnot. So let me see, what was the other thing? Oh, so on this episode we're supposed to do Backdraft, and then I realized that when this show comes out, it's going to come out the Saturday before Juneteenth. Juneteenth is going to be like Tuesday or Wednesday. And I was like, I'm always missing the holidays. We always miss the holidays on these podcasts. We gotta do something to acknowledge Juneteenth. So first of all, happy Juneteenth, everybody. And so Juneteenth, it was it's also known as Freedom Day, Jubilee Day, Liberation Day, and Emancipation Day. It's a holiday celebrating the emancipation of those who have been enslaved in the United States. Originating in Galveston, Texas, it is now celebrated annually on June 19th throughout the United States with increasing official recognition. It is commemorated on the anniversary date of the June 19th, 1865 announcement of General Order No. 3 by Union Army General Gordon Granger, proclaiming freedom from slavery in Texas. And that is from Wikipedia, where we get a lot of our information from. So the thing is that, like Zachary, you weren't taught this in school, were you?
I believe not.
Yeah, and neither was I. And so I originally thought it was like a fake holiday, like what's that one around Christmas time?
You talking about Hanukkah?
No, not Hanukkah. That's a real holiday. That's a real Jewish holiday.
That's the only thing I can think of on Christmas is Hanukkah.
No, there was Kwanzaa.
Kwanzaa?
So, yeah. So Kwanzaa was a holiday that was made up in the 1960s by a man who wanted to he wanted to embrace Black culture, and he wanted to get away from commercialism. So he basically created Kwanzaa. And to me, I was like, man, you grow up as a Christian celebrating Christmas, man, you ain't paying attention. You ain't listening to that noise. So I felt the same way about Juneteenth. And then, but as I learned more about it, it was actually being celebrated since that moment in 1865. You know, they had been celebrating it every year. It just wasn't a widespread celebration. Only certain pockets of the population were celebrating it. And then it's like, you know, the education teacher system is not teaching us about this. And then, you know, so the spread was slow. So I only found out about Juneteenth like a few years ago. So now I want to fully embrace and celebrate Juneteenth. Of course, it's in the middle of the week, so there's not much I can do about it, but I can give it a shout out on this podcast. Now, also, I'm still reading Dune. So Dune I just noticed this thing that's happening in Dune. So there's lots of characters in Dune, right?
Uh-huh.
So there's lots of plots and intrigue and stuffs going on.
Uh-huh.
So one of the plots, like you have two houses that hate each other. They're enemies. So one house is clearly the bad guy. They're evil. They like to beat people. And the other house is like basically the good guy. That's where the main character comes from. He comes from the good house. So the bad house sends a spy to the good house as a member of their staff. They turned the member of their staff. Now, they trust everybody in their staff because of personal connection, but this particular member has gone through what they call imperial conditioning, which means that he can't be turned. He's been conditioned to be completely loyal to whoever he serves. Mm-hmm. He's got a tattoo on his head to tell everybody that he's got this imperial conditioning. He cannot be turned. Uh-huh. So they learn that there's a traitor in the house. They trying to find out who it is, but they automatically disregard him because he has this tattoo on his head that says that he cannot be a traitor. Like everybody else has a family connection, but this guy, he doesn't have a family connection, but he cannot betray them. Uh-huh. And he's the one to betray them. And you know how they do it? The bad guys kidnap his wife and they say, you got to do what we tell you to do or we're going to kill your wife. And so he does it. Now, under ordinary circumstances for an ordinary person, I think that would be enough. But if this dude is supposed to have this special imperial conditioning that raises him above suspicion, what good is that conditioning if all you have to do is kidnap his wife and then and it's done? You break the conditioning just by doing what you can do to any other normal person. Yeah. You can do that to anybody. Kidnap their wife or their husband or their child and threaten to kill them if you know. You can do that to anybody. You would think that imperial conditioning is special. Apparently, it's trash. They need a refund. Anyways, that's my rant about that. I don't understand why nobody had pointed this out before. So they killed his wife anyway, and they were always going to kill his wife after he did what they told him to do, and then they killed him too. So what was the point of the imperial conditioning? I don't get it. Anyways, that's my Dune rant. That's probably the weakest part of the book. Let's move on to the next subject. We have a review, a genuine review on Apple Podcasts. It's titled Father and Son Having Fun. It's nice to know father and son are bonding through cinema, and it's even nicer that they let us hear. They have a great energy together, and you can tell that they have a great relationship through their interaction on the podcast. That's from Jer Felton from the U.S. That's from Apple Podcasts. He gave us 5 stars. Thank you, Jer. That's awesome.
Thank you.
So he also has a podcast. It's very similar to ours. It's a podcast called Why Do I Like This Movie? Or Why Do I Love This Movie? And it's neat because basically person likes a movie, and then their friend tries to guess why they like it. So, like they did, what you call it, the Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
There
Thank
you
you,
go.
thank you. I had a hard time getting
Don't
that
mess
out.
up that movie name. That's a good movie.
It's a great movie. I enjoyed it. So one person likes it, the other person tries to guess why the first person likes it. So it was like, is it because of the video game stuff? Is it because of the anime? Is it because of this or that? And then they explain why they like the movie. And I thought that was a neat concept. I really enjoyed that. So if you get a chance, check out a podcast called Why Do I Love This Movie? So that's it for the endorsements. How about you tell us about what we watched?
Yeah, we watched a movie called Glory. All right, so Colonel Robert Gould,
I think that's Gold.
Gould Shaw, an officer of the Federal Army during the American Civil War, volunteered to lead the first company of black soldiers. Shaw was forced to deal with the prejudice of both the enemies who had ordered to kill commanding officers of blacks and of his own fellow officers. That was written by Murray Chapman. Chapman. Okay.
So I got that from IMDb. I had to edit that a little bit because it had some errors. But anyway, yeah. So instead of doing Backdraft, decided that we would pivot to a more relevant movie to Juneteenth, and that would be Glory. So what I did not realize is that Glory is a true story. When I first saw it, I thought it was like any other movie, just a work of fiction.
It told you in the beginning, like, oh yeah, we got this based on the letters and also what people saw.
Yeah, but it does not normally. It'll say something like based on a true story or based on true events. It didn't actually say that. Now, I'm just saying when I first saw the movie, that I didn't know that it was real. It's only when I started doing research when I was writing this show that I know, oh, this was real. And you'll find out what keyed me into that these were real events. So this was released in February 16th, 1990 by TriStar Pictures. It grossed over $26 million in the U.S. and Canada on an $18 million budget. It had rave reviews. So this is not great for budget. Like if you spend $18 million movie on a movie, then you would expect to get something like $36 million back. That would be good, but to get only $26 million out of an $18 million
there was only
budget.
10 million short. That's all.
Huh?
There was only 10 million short. You know.
Yeah, I know, but that's weak. That's weak right there. And it was a great movie, so that's kind of messed up. It was a great movie with a great cast, and you saw all those stars in there. They had a great cast, but it was a great story, but it just didn't make the money that it should have got. So this movie was starring Matthew Broderick. He plays Colonel Robert Shaw. He's in The Producers, War Games, The Cable Guy, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. This dude, back in the day, especially when he was young, when he was in his 20s, this dude was hot. It was like every other movie, especially a movie requiring a young teenager, had Matthew Broderick. He was just that guy. He was the cool guy, and everybody wanted him back in the day.
All right, next is Denzel Washington. He was Private Tip.
That's Trip.
Oh, Trip. He was in Fences, The Book of Eli, Antoine Fisher, and Training Day.
That'd be Antoine.
Yeah.
But yeah, we talked about Denzel Washington before. He was in a lot of movies.
At first, I had to figure like, who was he playing? And I was like, oh, he was the one being a smart mouth.
Yeah. He was the one playing the smart mouth. I'll say it right now. He was basically playing the devil.
Basically, yeah.
Where he was awesome. He was awesome in that movie, and I think I put it in the trivia, but he didn't want to play the part at first because he wanted to play a full character, but he was one of the most important characters of the film. There's also Cary Ells. He played Major Cabot Forbes. He was in Saw, Robin Hood, Men in Tights, and The Princess Bride. Have you seen any of those movies? Have you seen The Princess Bride?
No, but I believe I've seen Saw, but I just don't fully remember.
I don't remember. He was much older in Saw than he was in this movie because, like I said, came out in the early 90s. when did Saw come out? I think it came out 2015 or no, not 2015, 2010, something like that. But anyways, I never saw Saw, so I don't. You said you saw Saw?
I think I did. I don't remember.
Oh, okay. Well, if it was gross, then you saw it. Yeah, are you trying to watch the new Saw that's out?
I don't know.
It's called Spiral. It's got what's his name? Chris Rock in it.
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
His name? No, his name isn't Chris Rock. No, his name is Yeah, it is Chris Rock. I'm wrong. What's the next one?
Next is Morgan Freeman. He was Sergeant Major John. He was in Seven, Invictus, Driving Miss Daisy, and Deep Impact,
and a bunch of other movies. Man, this dude gets around. He's an incredible actor. He's in a movie right now. He's in a couple movies right now. I forgot the name of them, and I'm not going to watch them, but the dude gets around. He's in the movies, and he's one of my favorite actors. Next is Jimmy Kennedy. He played Private Jupiter Sharks. He was in The Dream Team and Gung Ho.
Next is Andre
Bauer.
He was Corporal Thomas Seals?
That's a good question. Let's say Sealers.
He was in Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. He was.
Mm-hmm.
The Mist and Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
So you recognize him in Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
No. Wait, was he the captain?
Right. He plays the captain in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He plays a super serious captain.
I'm talking about who was he in this movie?
What you talking about? Silver Surfer?
No, not Silver Surfer. This movie.
Oh, you talking about Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
No, I said
Oh, you talking about this movie that we talking about?
What's wrong with you?
In Glory, okay.
What's wrong with
My
you?
bad.
Was he the one that had trouble reading?
Not the one who had trouble reading. Shift over a little bit more. Not the one who had trouble reading.
I don't know that.
He's not the one who had trouble reading. So what's the opposite of having trouble reading?
Okay, then why would you say it like that?
I was trying to get you to figure it out.
You could have just said, "Oh yeah, he was the one that had trouble reading." Now you talking about, well, if he wasn't the one,
no, he's not the one who had trouble reading. He's the one who could read. He was teaching other people to read.
Oh, him.
Yeah,
the one that was
opposite of having trouble reading is being an expert reader. Come on, son, you got this. You know how to do this.
I woke up. My brain is not at full capacity. Don't try me.
Yes, he's a dude with the glasses and the big teeth.
Okay, him.
This is his first film role. He's very young, you can tell. And then contrast that to the captain in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It's like he has gravity. And
it's like day and night.
Right. And the Silver Surfer. I mean, but he has the same face though. And in Silver Surfer, he played the general.
Okay.
He was a general that was kind of in
I can remember
Richards'
that.
way.
I can see him being a general and in Brooklyn Nine-Nine because of how his, of his age. I was like, okay, yeah, right. I can see that. But because he's younger than this one, it's hard for me to see.
He's so young in this one. But his mouth gives him away because he's got a big mouth and he's got big teeth. So his mouth basically gives him away. But he's a great actor. I always enjoy watching him. He was also, I can't remember the other movie. I want to say that he was in Homicide: Life on the Streets, but I can't be certain he was in that show. Also, there was John Finn. He played Sergeant Major McCulkey. I'm gonna say McCulkey. He was in Catch Me If You Can and Blown Away. So, do you know who this guy was? Sergeant Major.
Was he the one? I'm either guessing he was friends with.
No, not that
Saw?
dude. Not that dude.
Okay. He was the one that led his company to burn the houses down.
That wasn't a sergeant major. That was another colonel. He was the drill sergeant.
The drill.
He was the one drilling the soldiers.
The Irish one.
Yeah, the Irish one.
Okay,
He would. I'm gonna say Irish. I don't.
It was Irish or Scottish. I don't.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It was Irish or Scottish. I'm an American. I get confused. I get confused. I am so sorry. So anyway, I'm not even. Macaulay. I want to say that's Irish. Anyways, so I was just jumping ahead for saying that one of my favorite things he said when he was talking to Colonel Shaw, Matthew Broderick, and remember when he was pushing Corporal Seals down.
Yeah.
And the colonel says,
Like,
come over here.
come
It's
on.
like, you're being a little harder on the men.
Yeah,
And he was like, it's your
speak
friend?
freely.
Right.
Tell me,
right.
is that your friend? It's like, yeah. Tell me, well, you two grew up together, right? Yeah. So I time out, well, I think it's time for you to let him to grow up himself. Like, oh.
He said, let him grow up some more.
Like, oh, okay.
that was a good part. We also have Alan North.
Yeah, Alan North, who Governor John Alban Andrew. Okay, he was in Lean on Me and Highlander.
All right. So I don't remember him in Highlander. I think he was like a police captain in Highlander. But do you remember him on Lean on Me?
Was he the governor?
Right. He's always playing somebody like that, some governor or some general, some official. And he's playing a governor of he's playing Governor Andrew. And the last person I have on this list is Bob Gunton. He played General Harker. He was in Dolores Claiborne, The Shawshank Redemption, and Broken Arrow. You seen The Shawshank Redemption, haven't you?
Yeah.
Okay. So he played the warden of the prison. He also played in Broken Arrow. He was that dude that John Travolta killed.
Yeah, okay.
Right, that dude. He's always playing. He's kind of an authority. He's also kind of an a-hole. He's just kind of an a-hole. It's like we need an a-hole, and he does it. He fits the bill. He's stereotyped as the a-hole.
Yeah. This was directed by Edward Zwick.
It's like Wick, and just put the Z and say
Zwick.
Yeah, Zwick. That sounds good to me.
He directed The Last Samurai, The Shakespeare in Love, and Legends of the Fall.
I hear that they're all great movies. The only one I actually saw was The Last Samurai, but Shakespeare in Love and Legends of the Fall, people talk about those movies all the time. I will consider those classic works of art. This film was written by Kevin Jarre. He wrote Lincoln. Okay. I'm getting this all confused. This film is credited with several writers. So the main film was written by Kevin Jarre, and they have some writers that are credited to the film because Jarre had drawn from the works of other authors. So we have Lincoln Kirstein. He wrote Lay This Laurel, and also Peter Butchart. He's the author of One Gallant Rush. So they wrote books based on, I think they're their 54th, 52nd. I'll see. I should have wrote that down somewhere. Let's say. They wrote about the events of the first Black Cavalry. So the writer Jarre wrote this movie based on those works. Also, this movie has credited Robert Goldshaw, Colonel, because they use his actual letters in the movie. So those letters that you heard, those were actual letters that he wrote. So that was awesome. So we get his actual mindset about the Civil War and why he was fighting it. So you hear a common refrain that, the North didn't fight the Civil War to free the slaves. They fought the Civil War to keep the Union together, to keep the states from leaving, the Southern states from leaving the United States. Like it had nothing. Well, not that it didn't have anything to do with slavery, but they're not particularly interested in freeing the slave. And that's kind of true because Lincoln said that he didn't really care one way or the other if the slaves were free or if they were maintained in slavery, as long as the Union stayed together.
Right.
But Shaw felt that, he was the son of abolitionists. Abolitionist is somebody who wants to who thinks slavery is immoral and wants to free the slaves. So he carries on his family's belief.
Yep.
So that was one of the reasons that he fought. Like, it may not have been widespread for everybody, but that's why he fought. He fought because he believed slavery is immoral, and he thought that the war was a way of ending slavery. And we know that because his letters was in the film, and he said as much in his letters. So that's interesting. Yeah. It's good to have a little piece of history.
Music by James Horner. He made music for The Mask of Zorro, Willow, Titanic, and Avatar.
Those were some great words. What did you think about the movie, the music?
It was real good.
Yeah, it was good. It felt appropriate. This was produced by Freddie Fields. He also produced American Gigolo and Millennium.
All right, so we're gonna go take a short break, and we'll be right back to talk about our favorite parts of the movie, some movie trivias, and find out what some of the critics thought.
Hear that sound? That's the sound of untold millions of cicadas. They're a singularly unique insect species to North America. You see, these critters spend most of their lives hibernating underground. Then once every 17 years, they emerge from the ground to mate, then die, then their eggs are buried underground to start the cycle all over again. They also make a tasty treat. So come on down to Loopy Larry's Exotic Foods where you can dine on this extremely rare delight. Our specialty is our fire-roasted chocolate-covered cicadas made with our very special Swiss dark chocolate. Crunchy, sweet, and savory. Come on down and try some, why don't you? Loopy Larry's Exotic Foods.
And we're back. Thank you for sticking with us on this podcast. So, let's talk about this movie. And when we talk about the favorite parts, you don't have to narrate the whole movie.
Yeah. Right.
Pick and choose some of the parts you really like.
All right, yeah.
Go.
The beginning where, he's who was he, a colonel?
You're talking about Shaw.
Yeah,
in the beginning, he was a captain.
A captain, and instead of, he's just marching forward. I'm like, what kind of tactic is marching forward towards gunfire and cannons?
You know what? That's one of the most frustrating things about watching.
And I'm like, why would
war
you just
depicted.
Continue to walk forward?
That's just how they did it back then, and I am not BSing you. That is how they fought war for a long time. It's Europeans. That is how Europeans fought war for a very long time. And it stems back from like when they had swords and shields. So they're basically transitioning from swords and shields to firearms, and during this period, it was like that for a long time. And it's like, so in Europe, they would just basically, okay, we're gonna fight, and it's like war is it's almost a gentleman's agreement. It's like we're gonna meet at that field over there, we're gonna line up, and then we're just gonna march, and we're gonna fight each other on that field. I mean, or unless it's a siege or something like that, where an army goes to a castle, and whoever owns the king or whatever, whoever owns that castle has to defend his castle or whatever. But otherwise, sometimes they just meet on a field, or they meet at a town and just line up.
They're on a hill,
right?
The South has the upper hand because they're on a hill.
You're jumping ahead to the end of the movie.
No. Because remember, in the beginning, they're still on a hill.
Right.
And they're marching forward.
Right.
And I'm like, why would you march upwards knowing they can just aim down and like, okay, there we go.
They're marching into cannon fire. And I think
one guy got their head blown off. And I was like, oh, look at that.
I think that the logic is that they're just going to eat bullets until they run out of bullets. And they're going to eat bullets until they're close enough to stab them. I guess. It's frustrating to see that. It's like, how is this a viable tactic for warfare? It doesn't make any. Why did they think that was brilliant? And I think it was just because, well, it's just the gentlemanly way to fight. I guess that's the only thing that I can think of. It's the same way where there are a lot of people who don't like drones. It's like, man, I don't like drones because you don't have people actually in the vehicle. It's like, well, this is warfare. Why are we fighting fair? It's war. You don't want to kill civilians, obviously, but you do want to kill the enemy as efficiently as possible. So why not use drones? So yeah, it's so weird how they just line up and just march into gunfire. No ducking cover, no routing, nothing. We're just gonna march straight into the bullets until we get to the enemy, if we get there. And if we don't, we'll just turn around and retreat. All right. So was there anything particular about that, or you just want to remark about how?
Just remark on how dumb that was.
Right.
I do love how throughout the movie they do so how he has I can't remember the name of the word. It's like not PTSD. I don't think it's PTSD, is it?
Technically, yeah. It's PTSD.
Where Shaw is like someone like when he gets home, someone closed the windows and he jumps and he's like, okay, that's not it. When he's at training camp and then he sees when his group finally gets guns and he sees them playing around with them, faking around fighting. He's like, oh God, getting traumatized by it.
Right. He is definitely shell shocked, and that's real. In the beginning, when the battle that you was just talking about, when the cannons are going off, and you see him kind of duck his head, trying to. He had a sword. He has a sword out. He's marching towards the gunfire, towards the cannon fire, in a straight line where he could get shot. He's in front of his entire company.
Yep.
And people are getting blown up beside him. But the cannon fire or the explosions that they used, they were real, and were real loud. So when you see him duck his head like that, he's actually afraid because it's so loud and it's shaking the actor Matthew Broderick. So it's one of those cases where it's not acting, it's for real.
Another good thing, the training that they did is like when they was marching, and he was like about face. He goes up to the one that couldn't read. He's like, "Do you not know your left from your right?" And he was like, "No." It was like, who else don't know that left from their right? And you see some raise their hand, and then he was like, "This is your front, this is your back, this is your left." He steps on his foot, he goes for the right foot, and this is your. He's like, see, you're learning now.
Right.
I'm
So
like,
the dude, so Sergeant, was it Mulhaney? What's his name? Is Master Sergeant? See, I don't know.
Yeah, Sergeant Major McCulley.
All right, so McCulley, he's the one that's screaming at everybody, and that's similar to basic training nowadays, except they're not allowed to hit you; they can only yell at you. So yeah, he stepped on. He said, "This is your left foot." He stepped on his left foot, and he said, "This is your right foot." And the dude moved his leg. He was like,
"Oh, you're learning." Like, what the whoa?
Yeah. So there was a lot of that going on. Another part was when so they're marching, and he's yelling at Silas or Tom. So he's yelling at Tom in his face. And Tom wants to look at him because they're marching in formation.
Yeah, he's telling him, "Don't look at me.
Don't look at me." And that's real. That's basic training right there, because you're supposed to be disciplined. So you're marching forward, you're facing forward unless you're told to do otherwise. And so he's yelling at the dude, telling him to march correctly. And then the dude is getting annoyed. Trying to look.
Don't look at me.
He's like, "Don't look at me. You look forward." And he grabs his head and forces him to look forward. That was funny. The basic training parts was very entertaining because some of that is still going on today.
Yeah, the other training when they was running, they finally stopped. Thomas goes down on the ground. He goes to my get up. I'm like, he's winded.
Right. He was winded. He was done. That's the most he ever ran in his life.
Another good one when they had, I think it's called a javelin?
Baton
thing.
The bayonets.
Yeah,
bayonets are fixed to weapons, right?
And they're practice, thrusting their bayonets into the sand dummies.
Right.
And then he goes up to Thomas and tells him, "All right, try to hit me with it." And then he's like,
"Stab me."
He's stab me. And the first time he's like, "No," it's talking about don't play around. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. So Thomas goes to try to stab the Master Sergeant. Master Sergeant just knocks it away. "Stop playing around and stab me."
He gets frustrated. He actually goes for a stab, moves out the way, grabs the bayonet, knocks him down. And I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Right. It just basically starts beating him with the bayonet. And
then Thomas wants to go to Saul to complain, but Saul's like, he can't show any weakness. He can't show that, any type of like, "Oh, we can be friendly." He needs to be toughened up. He needs his men to toughen up. So that's why he's giving his own friend, his childhood friend, tough love.
Right. But basically giving his friend tough love and has to maintain distance.
Yeah.
He has to maintain distance.
What is it, co-captain, whatever?
He is a major.
Yeah,
so
but he doesn't understand, and he's getting upset. But that's Thomas. That's your friend. Why are you doing this? And it's like, don't you understand why? But I guess not.
Right. So,
because even he's fooling around and not taking the training serious.
Right. he's a second in command.
Yeah,
But they had mentioned that like in the early film. It's like, you want me as your second in command? You're dumb.
Yeah. Because all he does is marching, apparently.
It kind of worked out.
What was another good one? When they're in the tent, like the first time they're in the tent, you have Trip, Thomas, who else was it? Sergeant Major John. Well, Private John at the time. In the tent, I forgot the other guy's name, the one that couldn't read. So Trip is laying down in front of the he's not even in front of the tent, laying down inside, but he's like near it.
Right.
Thomas comes in, sits down near the front of the tent, and Thomas like, all right, I'm gonna need you to move, boy. He's like, why? But I need this to read. I need the light. Thomas, oh, you can read? Oh, wow. Ooh, that's good for you. And he's like, now move.
Right.
I'm like, wow.
Right.
And then that's when, and then also in that scene, a kid who couldn't talk comes in playing his drum. And then Trip is getting annoyed, talking about, I need you to stop playing that drum. Can't you speak or something? And the Thomas like, he's mute. What? He's mute. And then John's like, you mean he can't speak? Yeah. I'm like, wow. Just say he couldn't speak from the first time. Why you have to use big words around them? You know they don't use big words.
Mute ain't even a big word.
Well, tell me whatever it is. Because they didn't know what mute means.
Well, he gonna trip up and always say something that they don't understand. But then something like that happens later on. Later on in the film, they're marching, and these dudes come up. They also somehow join the army, and they were speaking, but they were speaking in a kind of slang.
Yeah, I think one was Irish, the other one was Jamaican.
I don't think he was Irish.
I know the other one was Jamaican.
Right. They were probably both Jamaican, but they both had strong accents, and the dude couldn't understand.
Yeah,
right?
Thomas couldn't understand like, what the heck is he saying?
Right.
And John's like, they're saying they're happy to be here.
Right. John understood what they were saying because John is from the South, so he was able to understand what they were saying. So what else you got?
When he wanted to get sued, so he goes to the place where he has to get sued. He has his men stand in front of the building as he goes inside.
All right, so you're talking about the colonel.
Yeah, the colonel.
The colonel goes to the quartermaster.
And he's like, so you're telling me that you don't have any shoes? He's like, no. Not well, there's low on it, and he's just like messing up the place.
Right,
he's like, all right, call, stop.
He's like, you can't. He said, you can't do that. What do you mean I can't do that? I'm a colonel.
I'm like, you know what? That's a good way to abuse your power.
Right. That's the first time he actually really invoked his rank. Right, because before, this is like his second confrontation with the quartermaster. The quartermaster's just a lieutenant. So the first time, he's already sent letters and whatnot asking for shoes. And then when they met at the dinner, he's asking politely for supplies, and the quartermaster's like, I'm sorry, we just don't have any. We don't have any for soldiers who are not fighting. He was saving them for the fighting soldiers or whatever. And then that's when, and so this is the final confrontation that you're talking about. And it's when he grows some nuts. And he was like, I'm a colonel. What are you going to do? Right?
And now the reason why he goes to get shoes is because he finds out, because Private Trip has some messed up feet from his shoes.
Him and half the men.
Yeah, and how he found out is because he was captured because he went out in the middle of the night when he's not supposed to.
Right.
And he was captured, and then he was punished. He wasn't sorry, he was whipped. And this is the thing. He still had to toughen up, because even though he didn't like it, because he was against something like that, he was like, go ahead. They need to learn that they can't be doing something like that. Right.
And not only that, but they had opportunities to leave. Like they were given opportunities to leave without punishment. But
the thing is, like, when they revealed his back, you see all these whip scars on him. I'm like, oh
yeah. So
you can tell he's been through a lot.
Right. He's been through a lot. He's been defiant before.
Yeah. And as he's getting whipped, he's just staying silent. He's not screaming. This only says one tail. It's like, yep. That's how you can tell he's been whipped a lot. There's no point of screaming.
That's what Lori was talking about. Remember when she was here, and she was talking about she was talking about what movie did we do when she was here? It was The Last Dragon.
Yeah.
So in that movie, they had a dude, and he was getting all emotional. He had that one tear going down his cheek. So she said it was like Denzel Washington having one tear going down his cheek. This is what she was talking about.
Yep.
She was talking about this moment right here. So there's something interesting about that particular scene that I can't wait to when we get to the trivia. So go ahead.
Let's see. What else was a good one? When they go to join this other group, it was like, yeah,
So there's another Negro Union Army, or I guess it's a company or whatever. I don't know the size of the division, or I don't know the size of the unit. So anyways, so they have their own white colonel commander.
Yeah.
And he wants to take his troop pillaging. So you're talking about that part.
Yeah, come on, you come pillaging.
Yeah, he
invites
invites Shaw to come join.
Actually,
he doesn't say that that's what they're doing. He invites them to go to a battle, so they think they're going to a battle.
It wasn't a battle. I think he was talking about getting some items,
But he didn't say that. No, when they first met, he wasn't talking about getting no items. He was insinuating that they was going to battle, that they was going to see some action.
But
so let's come with us and come see some action.
They comes to some houses and like, all right, anyone there? Like, no, there's no one there, but it's mainly almost mainly empty. Some woman, nothing much. And it's like, all right, go pillage. I'm like,
right,
what?
right.
What have you been doing? And he explains to me, well, they're like kids, they're like monkeys.
Right.
They're not gonna really be taken seriously. And I'm like, so you're telling me Saul has been having his men trained and worked while your men have just been playing around like buffoons? Okay, wow.
And basically pillaging, and not because nobody wants to put him into any black soldiers in the battle.
Yeah. And
so
then,
it's either hard labor, manual labor, or it's stuff like this where they're just pillaging houses pillaging empty houses.
Then he tells Saul, all right, tell your man to burn the house down. He's like, I will not. He's like, well, if you don't, then I will have you, what was it? Court-martialed, and I'll take command of your company.
Right, because even if he protests the order, he can still be court-martialed. And even if he's proven right, what the guy said it was going to happen.
Oh, God.
He's going to take his soldiers.
Yeah, he's going to take your soldiers. And I'm like, that's still messed up. Like,
right.
Like, he worked.
He's like, you'll be court-martialed, and then your troops will be under my command. So
and then he gives in time, all right, go ahead. Burn the houses.
Right. He didn't have his entire
company. He only had
he only had like 2 squads, or actually he had a platoon. So he only brought 1 platoon to this farce.
And this is when Private John is now Sergeant.
He's a Sergeant Major.
Yeah, Sergeant Major John.
Right. So during the course of the film, that was a pretty good moment too when he got his promotion. They did it the right way. He in front of all the men and whatnot, and basically raised them up in the eyes of his men. And John didn't want the promotion, and he's like, I don't know if I want this. And Shaw was like, I know what you mean.
Yeah, because Shaw was forced to become a colonel.
He went from being a captain all the way to the colonel. So he went up several ranks, and that was just crazy. And here's my theory. I didn't do any real research, so I'm just basically going off the film. So my supposition is probably totally wrong, but they decided they didn't believe that Shaw was a particularly good officer. He was a little bit timid. You could probably say he was cowardly because they found him like lying down, basically hiding amongst the dead bodies from the battle. So they're not going to give what is the word I'm looking for? They're not going to give a battalion of black soldiers to a good officer. So they're going to give it to a weak officer. So they saw him as being weak. So that's why they gave him the command. They promoted him and gave him the command. But I would have to read further up on it to know the truth of the matter.
Because they didn't expect him to, get any soldiers, even though they had, people there saying like, yeah, he can do it, yeah.
Right. But I think that's why they did it, because they're not going to waste one of their good officers on a battalion that they didn't believe in.
Another good one is like the scene where they actually get to fight for the first time. You know, it's like, okay, they're standing their ground, they're waiting for the enemy to come. They come up on horses, they take their shots and fire. It's like, oh yeah, celebrate a little bit, and they're like, hold up.
Right. They fired this group of enemy soldiers, and then they turn and run away. So they think they won the battle.
They won the battle, but then they come back and more. I'm like, oh, they're like, all right, reload, hurry, reload.
Right.
Aim, fire, boom. He's like, just reload and fire. Don't wait for my command.
Then fire at will.
Fire at will.
And so it's basically the same situation. Like this time, it's the Confederate soldiers who just marching into gunfire.
But at least they're firing back. They're not just marching forward.
Right. At least they're firing back. And they're closer. And the other thing is that so they're coming. They actually do what these armies try to do. They get to the enemy. Enough of them get shot to get to the enemy, so they outlast the bullets basically. Yeah. So they get close enough where they have to fight hand to hand, and it almost makes a kind of sense since it takes time to reload the weapon.
Yeah.
So it almost
that part makes sense, but
still, still just walking into gunfire just doesn't seem wise. So so they get into hand to hand, close quarters combat, and they win. They win that battle.
Thomas get hurt, but he's like, I don't want to go back home. I still want to fight.
Right. He gets shot. They said, you got to go back. You've been shot. It's like, please don't send me back.
Promise me you won't send me back. He's like, and then he gives into the will, him being a friend, like, okay, I promise.
Right. And so he gets to stay with his comrades.
I also skipped over on how when they are first practice shooting, the one he has the best shots because all he does is score hunting.
Yeah. So
and then
is the one that has trouble speaking.
Yeah.
The one that didn't know his left from his right.
And then Shaw comes over talking about, yeah, you're a pretty good shot. Reload. Faster. He's like, all right, give me a gun. He starts firing, talking about faster. I'm like, oh, yeah, this is a real battle.
Right.
You got to reload fast. If you don't, then you're dead.
Right. Well, not only that, but you have to do it amongst all the gunfire.
Yeah, all amongst the gunfire.
He's firing a revolver behind his head.
Just to get him.
To give him a sense of what the battle is going to be and to basically shock everybody else that's there looking at him. So he has to reload his weapon while Shaw is firing this revolver behind his head, and it's faster because he said that a good soldier can get in 3 good shots in 1 minute. And then you see all the things he had to do to reload that weapon. It's a lot.
Put in the gunpowder. What was it? It was like some paper thing, gunpowder, shove it down.
Yeah, he had to pack it down. No, it was a round. It was a. I don't know the order. Yeah. I don't know how to do these weapons. They're so old. But at some point you have to put the bullet in.
Yeah.
Where you have to put the gunpowder in, then the bullet in, and then something else in. You have to pack it down because he had the thing in his mouth. I don't even know what that was.
I think that was the gunpowder because he had to tear it out.
And then he had to do a whole bunch of things with the trigger, and then aim and fire. So it's a lot.
A lot just for one.
Gun. Right, it's a lot for one shot, and then you gotta hope you hit.
And then, the only ones that got a good gun are the colonels because they got the revolvers. They can just reload.
Well, see, the thing about the revolvers is that they're unreliable. That's why you have to have the long guns. The revolver is great because you can just keep pulling the trigger.
Yeah.
But the problem where you have to pull the hammer, then pull the trigger. But the problem with the revolver, it doesn't have the range and it's not particularly accurate. That's why you have the long guns. The long guns are accurate. It's like if you have a revolver, it's only good if the dude is like coming up right up on you.
I guess.
But if they're like really far away, then it's useless. It's because it doesn't. Those revolvers didn't have the range back then.
Let's see. The last good thing was like the final battle. This is when they're trying to take over a fort.
Right. The climax of the film.
Yeah, the climax of the film. He also asked Tripp, would he become, like before that, would he become the flag guy?
The flag bearer.
Yeah, the flag bearer. And he's like, no, why would I want to do that?
He's like, I don't want to carry no flag.
Yeah. And, this is the battle. Saul gives his letters to this reporter saying, give it to my family. And what you see is just report what you see.
Right.
He's getting ready. he sends off the drummers to not be there because they're kids. All the drummers there are kids. I'm like, yeah, of course they can't be there.
It's like, you men are dismissed. I said, get out of here.
They couldn't go off.
So, so this is actually a plan for the entire division.
Yeah.
So it's not just Shaw's battalion.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of other battalions.
Because the plan is that they will be going in first, trying to do what they can do, and then backup would arrive.
So basically, the plan is for the first battalion to go in and eat the bullets, eat enough bullets so that the other battalions that follow them can have an easier time, and that's how they're supposed to take the fort. He said when they were going over this plan, they was going over it like a previous days before. It was Shaw that volunteered.
Yeah, he volunteered for it, and he's like, "Are you sure? You men haven't slept in 2 days."
Right.
He's like, "We're ready."
Right. So that's the thing. It's like, yeah, you're just gonna go up this narrow passage, the only path you can go to get to this fort. And casualties will be heavy. Yeah, like all of them. That's basically everybody that went up to that fort. Got.
Saul got off his horse, sent it off because he was like, you know what, this horse can live better days.
I think he wanted to march with his men.
He also wanted to march with his men. He didn't want to be on his horse.
Right.
And his men celebrated because he's marching with them.
Right.
First they start marching slowly, then they pick up the pace,
right.
And then they started to charge a little bit.
Right.
Took cover. It's like, we'll wait here until nightfall. Nightfall comes. They charge again. They're still getting fired at with cannons and gunfire.
Right.
Charging.
Still
somehow Saul is still alive. Trip is somehow still alive. The one that can't read still alive. Thomas is still alive. John is still alive.
Yeah, all the main characters still alive.
I'm like, okay, wow. Even though they're in the front.
Even though they're up front, right. But they did manage to make it.
Yeah, they managed to make it near the fort, going up a hill. Saul was the flag bearer was the first to go down near the hill. Then Saul, and then they was like, all right, screw it, we're charging up. Thomas, was it Thomas that picked up the flag?
No, it wasn't.
No, it was Trip. Trip picked up the flag, and he got shot, and he's leaning on the flag there. It's like, oh wow, he actually did it. He actually picked up the flag. Right. He said he wouldn't do it.
Right.
And, they charge in, and it looked like they could take over the fort, but then they get to the center, and they're all there. And they all get shot. I was like, oh,
right.
Dang. It felt like they could have done it.
Right.
Because it felt like because of how they saw Saul get shot and killed, there was like full with rage and like, oh, we want revenge. We want justice.
Right. They were empowered after they saw their leader go down. And there was an interesting part in that fight. So when they were able to get to the point where there was in hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah.
So there was one point where you have Thomas.
Oh yeah, Thomas got hit
and
again.
Here's what happened, right? So he's charging this dude with a bayonet. The dude tried to stop him with the bayonet. And the very same move that he learned in basic training that the sergeant major taught him was that way he used. So he batted the bayonet out of the way and grabbed it out of his hand and started beating the man with his own bayonet. So he learned something.
Yeah.
He learned something, but then he got stabbed in the back.
In the same spot where he got shot, I'm like, oh, okay.
No, he got shot in the shoulder in the front.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, but he still got stabbed in the back, in the shoulder.
Right, he got stabbed in the back. So it's and so they try to carry him away, but then it's like everybody's getting killed at the same time. So
and then there's the next impactful moment where you see Saul bodies get thrown to the side, and then Trip is like thrown next to him. It's like, oh wow,
right? They're burying him in a mass grave at the beach. So I don't know if I put this in the trivia, but that was an insult to him to bury him, a white officer, with the black enlisted one.
I'm pretty sure he wouldn't been. I don't think he'd have been insulted. I'm pretty sure. I think he'd have been okay with that. I mean, maybe, perhaps. Because in their mind, like, let's insult him by burying him with the person he wanted to fight with.
The mass grave in and of itself is an insult, but then to bury a white man, and it's not really for him since he's already dead.
Yeah,
it's for the other people who are observing. Like, yeah, this is what we do to y'all. That's basically their commentary. So yeah, and then there was. I want to go back to because something I had just remembered as we were talking, but now it's gone. I got it No, it's gone.
Was it a fight scene?
Was it a fight scene? I don't know.
Training?
No, I don't remember. Maybe it'll come
Was
up.
it when, Saw and his friend was talking, and in one of the scenes, he was basically, I think he had an accent to him, because he sounded, I think he sounded a little bit Irish when he was talking.
No, that's not it. Anyway, let's move on. It'll just bug me I'll think of it when I drive you to work. So we got some trivia here. And trivia, as always, comes from IMDb. Now, the Civil War reenactors who took part in the film did so voluntarily without any pay. Now that is dedication. So all of those soldiers you saw on there,
there was,
except for the main actors.
Yeah, I feel like they're reenactment soldiers. That's what my gut's telling me. Those are reenactment soldiers.
Right. And
because they knew what they was doing.
Pretty much every time you have a Civil War movie, they're gonna find some Civil War reenactors who do this stuff all the time to participate in their movie.
Edward Zwick claimed that for the flog scene, Denzel Washington was last at full contract with a special whip that would not cut his back, but was still stung. For the final take of the scene, Zwick hesitated to call cut to signal the flogging to stop, and the result was Washington's spontaneous tears down his cheek.
Goodness gracious, he hesitated to call cut.
He was like, should I call it?
Right.
Should I call it?
Right.
Then he sees the tears.
That's what I'm looking for.
Cut.
He was being actually beaten. I was like, oh,
He's like,
that ain't right.
He's like, wait, are those tears? Wait, cut.
Right.
There we
right,
go.
right.
That's what I'm talking about. Thank you, Denzel Washington, baby. Thank you. All right, get some ice on you.
Yeah, so it was actual. He was in actual pain doing that. That's just crazy.
Like, how you gonna hesitate to call cut? You just gonna wait for him to shed a tear?
Right. So
Jeez.
That's what I was talking about earlier. So Morgan Freeman did all of his own stunts, which is crazy. That's not what you're supposed to do.
Hey,
Right?
Morgan Freeman, if he wanted to do it at the time, like, you know what? Go ahead and do it at the time.
I think most of his stunts involve like jumping and running.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was just it.
And there's some of the fighting.
Morgan Freeman used his experience in the Air Force to inform how relationships would be formed in the unit. Freeman claimed that no one became fast friends during training, but partnerships are made according to strengths.
Yes,
I didn't even know he was in the Air Force.
I didn't either.
That's
So he was in the
interesting.
Air Force. He's a vet. That's totally awesome. Matthew Broderick claimed that the battle scenes didn't require much acting because he was genuinely afraid of the extremely loud explosions on set. That's what I mentioned earlier.
Edward Zwick was intentionally apprehensive about how the African Americans cast would feel about a young white Jewish director telling a crucial part of their history. He found that the cast to be very affable and good-humored towards him. Some were grateful that he was brave enough to tackle the subject.
Yeah, and he's a very good director. Denzel Washington was initially opposed to appear in the film until he realized it gave him a shot at portraying a fully fleshed out character. That is exactly right.
According to Edward Zwick, Matthew Broderick and Cary Elwes did not get along during the filming.
So that's interesting. That Cary Elwes was
the second in command.
Right, he was the second in command. So they had a lot of scenes together. So it's crazy that they didn't get along. The film opens with a voiceover by Shaw writing a letter to his mother with martial music playing and the Army of the Potomac enjoying their day for preparing for battle. The letter ends with, "You mustn't think that any of us are going to be killed. They are collecting such a force here that an attack would be insane." A short while later, the title card appears, Antietam Creek, Maryland. Shaw just marched into the bloodiest single day in American history.
Yeah, you tell me, you must think it, because we got a huge army. They must be insane. Moments later, they just get I'm like, what happened to that giant army, you know?
Yeah, moments later, almost everybody's dead.
Many of the first shots was taken from the 125th anniversary reenactment of the Battle of Gettysburg in 1988. Up to 15,000 participants took part. The scene filmed at the Gettysburg reenactment were fused into the Battle of Antietam scene, which was filmed in McDonough, Georgia. Some shots show the brownest dry summer background of Pennsylvania in 1988. Others show the greener spring background of Georgia in 1989.
Right. So they took two scenes and fused them together, and nobody really noticed. Right? That's just great editing. Somebody did a good job on that part. I guess if you're really paying attention to the grass, you'd be like, hey. But I don't think anybody's looking that close to the grass. Fog machines were used throughout the production to eradicate any signs of blue sky. Edward Zwick wanted the film to look as bleak as possible.
Yeah, did a good job on that.
Yeah, he did.
Robert Gold Saw and Charles Fessenden
that sounds good.
Morris were the only two soldiers whose real name were used in the movie. Morris, however, was not part of the 54th Massachusetts in real life. Cabot Forbes was based on Edward Needles Hollowell, who led the 54th after Saw died.
Oh, okay.
That's interesting.
So the 54th. That's what it. Not the 52nd.
54th.
The 54th Massachusetts. So so that's interesting. The scenes for the party were filmed in the Savannah home of John Williams, a man whose history...
Jim Williams.
Oh, thank you, Jim Williams. The man whose history was based on the book and film Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil.
Well, this is the first major motion picture to acknowledge that African Americans had their own unit in the American Civil War. The subject has been referred to other films, such as
Shenandoah
that came out in 1965.
Yeah, it was referred to in other films. So people talked about the first Black Regiment, but they weren't depicted. So this is the first film to depict the first Black Regiment. Where am I? I see it. James Horner's end title music is also used in the theatrical trailer for Backdraft in 1991. See, we come full circle.
Favorite movie of Denzel Washington's sons, John David Washington, while growing up.
Right.
So it sounds like, this is my favorite movie.
Right. His favorite movie with it. And it's a lot of people's favorite movie. It's just a great movie. And his father does an excellent job in his movie. He steals most of the scene. I remember the scene that I wanted to talk about earlier. So it's a scene it's one of Washington's best scene when they get their pay. They just found out.
I forgot about that.
Right.
They come out. We're only getting $10.
Right, $10. Everybody else gets $13.
And the wife gets $13. No, forget this pay.
Right,
we don't want it. And then Charles like, well, you know what? If you don't want your pay, then I don't want it. We're none of us getting paid. He tears up his own paycheck. I'm like, wow, okay.
Because it's like the black soldiers, the attitude at first is like, well, it's better than nothing. It's like it's way
better
more,
than nothing.
It's way more than what we get otherwise. It's less than the white soldiers, but it's still way more than what we get otherwise.
And then you also get John. He's getting like. He's like, I can sign my name. And the guy's like, oh, you can? Okay, then sign your name.
Right.
And he's like, I don't even want to sign now because of the way you talk to me.
Right. And then Trip was like, tear it up. Right. He getting everybody to tear it up because it's like they're not getting paid like everybody else. So he's like, tear it up. And so everybody started tearing up their
another good one that we forgot about?
What's that?
The second time they're in a tent. And, when Trip needed some shoes. And he's like, well, there's a lake. We can go on
That's
by.
what I mean. That's what I mean. That Trip.
And then,
Trip is the devil.
And then,
it's like, we can get some biscuits. Some biscuits.
Thomas comes in. He's all sad because, he got whooped by the major.
Right.
And he couldn't go to his friends for help. So he puts his hat on his face.
You're talking about the sergeant major.
Yeah, sergeant major. So he puts his hat on his face. And then Trip is antagonizing him. Talking about, what's wrong, huh?
Right.
He's talking about your friend couldn't help you or something?
Yeah, you thought you could be one of them, huh? You thought you could be white, huh? I guess you're getting learned now, huh?
And then, he leaves him alone. And he's like, forget it. And then he's like, well, we can go get some collard greens, some mashed potatoes. And now he's trying to get the guy who can't read to go with him.
Right.
And
right.
then John's like, don't do it. Don't listen to him. And he's like, what are you, an old man or a grandma? He's like, you know what? I'm gonna go to sleep.
Right.
I'm like,
right.
wow.
Yeah, I told you, Chip is a devil. He always trying to tempt people to do stuff.
And then like a few scenes later, he gets in my own word owned by John because he's again antagonizing Thomas.
Right.
And this is when they're doing not slavery work, but
just manual labor.
Yeah, this manual labor. And then he's like, "What? Tell about." John's like basically like, everyone else is trying to be something. You're just here. You're the only one here being a nigga because you're the only one being stupid and ignorant. I'm like, oh, whoa, yeah, there it is.
Right.
Finally, someone told him.
Right.
And then you see him realize that he's right
because he's always fighting.
He's always trying to fight everyone. He's not trying to fight
He's fighting his commanding officer. He's fighting the other soldiers. He's fighting the NCOs. He's fighting. He doesn't. He's fighting everybody. That's
like when they have the scene where they're basically before they go into the fort, it's at night. They're doing prayer, and then John's like, "All right, come on, Trip, go and say something." And he doesn't know what to say because he's like caught in confusion, telling him what to say. He's like, "You know what? I guess this is like having an actual family because I never really had any." And then he gets embarrassed. He's like,
No, he was getting choked up.
He was getting choked up. He's like, I don't
because it's like even though he fights with them, it's like he lost his family like early on. It's like they don't really dive into like he must have lost it when he was young. So he said that the 54th was the only family he ever had. It's like that was, I guess, it's like in his way that the only way that he can express his affection is to mess with him. He's that type of person. Yeah. He's like it's like a little kid that beats up a girl because he likes the little girl. He's like that. So he really loves the soldiers that he serves with.
Especially Thomas, apparently. Mainly Thomas.
Right. Mainly Thomas because he
and it shows like in the final battle, Thomas is about to fall doing the march, and then Trip catches him.
Right.
I'm like, okay,
because not only did Thomas save Trip's life, during the first fight, but at the same time, he got shot, so he could go home, but instead of going home, he chose to stay with them. Right, so he learned. He got a lot of cred for staying.
Thomas grew some balls.
Right.
Thomas, Trip, accepted his, let people know that he likes them, that's his family.
Right. So,
and I think those were the, Saul grew up here, manning up.
Right.
Actually taking charge instead of being a whimper about it.
Right.
And I was like, those are the three characters' development throughout the movie. The only character development throughout the movie.
Well, they're the most important characters. Yeah. I mean, you had a dude that couldn't read, that learned to read.
He learned to kind of learn to read.
Right. You had the second in command that learned to be more responsible.
Yeah.
Right. So everybody kind of grew up a little bit. So it was good. So let's move along. Let's move along to see what the critics thought. So critics. Oh, before I talk about the critics, what did you think the movie?
It was real good.
Yes, it was real good.
This is something that should be in Black History Month that wants to be rated in schools apparently for eons.
They should have kids watch this as part of their Black History Month assignment.
Because apparently since they want to keep showing movies and having us do all this work around Black History Month instead of like math and science. No, it's like actually no science. I still did science. It was only like math where it's like, oh yeah, Black History Month. Don't do math. Really? Yeah. It was just my teacher that it was like, what about
right?
Like I understand social studies and English, yeah, sure, but when it came to math, it was like only that one teacher was like, okay, instead of doing math, Black History Month.
That's crazy. Because you know what's funny? Because that didn't happen when I was going to school, and that probably only happened in that one semester, right? It didn't happen every single.
It would depend if I had that same teacher for that.
Right. that teacher was like, "You're gonna learn some Black history. I don't care."
Can we not?
So, no.
Even with the
It's like,
substitute teachers,
I know I'm supposed to be.
it was like
teaching
two
science.
substitute teachers who did the same thing. Like, can we just learn the subject that we're supposed to learn?
No, we learned something about Black history. They don't told you about Martin Luther King Jr., but they didn't tell you about Marcus Garvey, did you?
Yeah.
You gonna learn about some Marcus Garvey.
That's what they always do. Like, come on, we're not gonna learn about Martin Luther King. We're not gonna learn about I can't remember her name. Stayed on the bus.
Oh, you talking about Rosa Parks?
Yeah, but we're not gonna talk about her. We're gonna talk about other people who never. I'm like,
right. Other people who never get attention. Right.
Like, come on,
You're gonna learn you some history.
I understand they're important, but why you must drag it on?
The teacher young ones about the George Washington Carver. I'm gonna teach you some. I'm gonna learn you some George Washington Carver.
It's like, yeah, Glory should be one of those movies that should be shown in Black History Month. Right. One of them.
Right. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. I had a feeling that you would enjoy this movie because for me it was more emotional this time watching it than when I originally watched it. I think I watched it the first time when I was around your age. So I watched it this time. It was way more impactful the second time going around, especially since I know that now that I know it's a true story. So yeah, pick the winner. Pick the winner again. I know what I'm doing. I know my son. I know what I like. And I know he likes what I like. That's the point of this podcast. So let's continue with what the critics think. Critics gave it a 93%. Audience gave it a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's symbiosis right there. It's a kumbaya between the critics and the audience that made it a little bit difficult to find a truly negative review. And then IMDb reviews it at 7.8 out of 10. It's kind of confusing. It's usually not out of sync with Rotten Tomatoes, but it is in this instance. Who are the 3.4, 3.2 people that didn't like it? I don't know. It's very confusing, but I digress.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's go.
So, Bill Chambers from Films Creek Central. Are you sure you're not cutting Glory too much slack because of the educational subject matter at hand?
No, we're not cutting it too much slack, Bill Chambers. This movie is right. You didn't see that acting by Denzel Washington? Is you wrong? What are you daft? That's one of the negative reviews I found. So also there's Peter Travers from the Rolling Stone. Matthew Broderick is catastrophically miscast as Shaw. Now here's the thing. I kind of thought that at first, especially when I first saw the movie. But then when I watched it this time, I kind of saw what they was doing because they didn't want to show. They wanted to show Shaw grow from being kind of a smaller character to a man coming into his power, coming into his authority. So
especially when he goes into the quartermaster, like I want my shoes.
Right. So yeah. So and the other thing is that like nobody alive know what he really looked and acted like.
Yeah, so, that is also
and
true.
The other thing
unless they have pictures and they're like, okay.
Well, they have the relief, like the relief that you saw at the end of the movie. That was him.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that the what you call it? I'm trying to think of what I was gonna say. I had it right on the tip of my tongue. It was like right there. It was something about either Broderick or Shaw.
It was how they acted, how they looked.
It was good. He acted good. The hair and makeup was phenomenal. But I wasn't going to talk about the hair and makeup. It's just that looking at it the second time, I could see what the filmmakers were trying to do, and it made sense. And Matthew Broderick made sense. So I can't agree with Peter Travers. But the funny thing is that's pretty much the worst thing that you could possibly say about it because this movie was phenomenal.
James Brundage.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Brundage sounds
good.
Okay,
from filmcritic.com. The finest Civil War film and one of the finest war films, period, that I have ever seen. So he's like, yeah, you know what? This is the better one.
Right.
And the only better ones. Everyone else,
Right. This was a great movie. Richard Schnickel from Time Magazine. It's the movies often. I'm reading this all wrong. I'm start right back over. It is the movie's often awesome imagery and a bravely soaring choral score by James Horner that transfigure the reality, granting it the status of a necessary myth. And the thing about James Horner, remember we talked about him. Remember, this is the composer. Let me look this up.
Yeah, he was the one that made music for Avatar.
Avatar, Titanic.
Titanic.
One of these was his first one. Willow was the first movie that he did. It was the first he did movie before. Remember, he was working at a record shop.
Yeah,
when
and
they found him. And they
yeah,
asked
like,
him
you
to
know,
score the
hey,
movie.
you know, come here. We want you to do a movie score
And
for
he's
us.
been making great scores ever since. So
Yeah.
this is one of his great scores.
It's like one of those times, like, okay, I used to work at a basic store. Someone found me, and I became big time. Like actors, like, oh, yeah, I used to work at a restaurant as a
As a waiter.
Or waitress, cook.
Right.
And then, you know, I was found. They're like, hey, can you act? I was like, yeah, a little bit.
Right.
It's like, you know, come, you're going to act for us for a little bit. And then, okay, became a big star. Yeah, you know, or just start from a small job and you can become a big star. You just have to hope someone finds you.
Right.
You have to look good and someone finds you.
Well, he did have a body of work. And it's like the actors that are working in restaurants and whatnot, it's not like they're just not working at all.
Yeah,
they're
always trying to find work. That's why they're in LA, Hollywood, working.
Right. They're doing commercials, they're doing plays, they're doing improv, they're doing stuff. It's just not enough to get them off their regular job. Right.
And then when they are found, they're like, okay, this is my big shot.
Right.
I can't mess up. I gotta give the best performance I can.
Right.
No matter what the movie is.
And sometimes it works.
Because sometimes I feel like they do just end up taking a movie regardless of what the script is because they want to make it big.
Right.
It's like a make or break situation. So it's like, is it I take it and it works out, or it doesn't, or I just deny it and just hope something else comes along.
No, you got to take it because you got to pay the rent.
You got to just take it.
Here's a funny story. I don't know if we talked about this earlier, but Arnold Schwarzenegger, when he first got into acting, he was already a millionaire when he really started taking roles.
I'm pretty sure he was because of him winning body.
No, it was actually in real estate.
Really? Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, he did win bodybuilding competitions.
I would not expect that man to be a real estate agent. Not at all.
Yeah, he's a real estate mogul. So what happened is that when he came over to America, he would win competitions, but it wasn't a big sport like it is now.
Yeah.
He was one of the reasons that it became such a big sport. And I don't even know.
Wait, was he a real estate in Germany or real estate in America?
Real estate in America. So I don't even know if he
I can't see that because of his accent.
Right. I what happened is that I'm not sure what their cash prize on a like winning Mr. Olympus or Mr. Universe is. But yeah, he would buy and sell properties in I think in California, and that's how he made most of his money. So whenever he took film, I think he was in a movie called like Hercules in New York. So I don't think it's one of those movies that he picked and chose. But regardless of all that, so most of the roles that he took, they're roles where he was the star or he had a significant role or a significant part. He could pick and choose the best parts of what he wanted to do because he didn't need to do the acting. So he could turn down a lot of roles. He almost turned down Terminator because he didn't want to be the bad guy, right? So, but the other actors, like he'll go to the gym and he'll work out and he work out with actors and they would complain about the roles that you're taking. And he's like, well, why would you take it? It's like, well, I got to do it so I can eat. You know, it's either that or nothing, right? So that's how they start out. So anyway, talking about an industry that we don't really participate in, we just look at it from the outside. We just looking at the screen acting from the outside, just guessing what they might be going through. So finally, Glory, as of this recording, is available for free if you have Stars. The next episode, I wrote down Backdraft, but like this movie was a really heavy movie. Backdraft is a little lighter, but you think you can handle a heavy movie or a light movie? Which direction you want to go?
I don't think it matters.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll continue with Backdraft. And once again, if you like the show, then please rate us, write a review on Apple Podcasts. I've learned something about writing reviews on Apple Podcasts. It is frustrating. And it's one of the only places where you can actually write a review for the podcast. Most other places, like my favorite podcast app is Pocket Cast. And the most they'll let you do is put a star by the episode. So every podcast app is different on how you rate and review. But we would really appreciate it if you would rate and review the show. It helps the algorithm. It helps people to find the show. Also, please share the show with somebody. Do a hashtag Backlook Cinema on Twitter or on Facebook or whatever your favorite social media site is. Believe me, it matters. So be safe. Hug your loved ones. What you said, you're getting vaccinated. As when this show is released, you would get your second vaccination.
Yes.
Awesome.
I'm not looking forward to it.
Zach is getting his second vaccination. And then 2 weeks after that, he'll be fully vaccinated. Then we're going to take the whole family to the movies and watch something like, I don't know, Black Widow. I don't know. We'll find something awesome. And in that, I ask you to be outstanding.